It's time now for a look at the day's top business news with Brian Quinn. Hi, Brian.
Hey, Chris.
You're starting with in the US, where President Donald Trump claims to be having success in putting more economic pressure on Russia to stop the war in Ukraine.
So Trump says he's convinced Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi to halt his country's purchases of Russian oil. If true, that would be a significant blow to the energy revenues that have helped to prop up the Russian economy in spite of ever-deepening Western sanctions. Russia is India's top oil supplier. As of September, it exported more than 1.6 million barrels per day, making up roughly a third of India's imports. Trump recently doubled U.S. tariffs on Indian goods from 25% to 50% over the country's ongoing purchases of Russian oil. Indian officials protested, saying they had previously received approval from Washington to continue those imports as part of a strategy to avoid a supply shock on energy markets. Delhi also noting that major other importers of Russian oil, like Turkey and China, were not subject to the same punitive measures. Trump says he'll be targeting China next as he tries to pressure Vladimir Putin to end that war in Ukraine. Here's the president.
So I was not happy that India was buying oil. And he assured me today that they will not be buying oil from Russia. That's a big stop. Now I got to get China to do the same thing. If India doesn't buy oil, it makes it much easier. And they're not going to buy. They assured me they will, within a short period of time, they will not be buying oil from Russia.
And Brian, that may be a hard sell for China, especially given the already tense trade relationship between Beijing and Washington.
Indeed, Karis, and those trade tensions have been deepening after a number of new developments over the past week. Beijing's move to further restrict the export of rare earth minerals, which are critical to high-tech manufacturing, drew a threat from Trump to impose an additional 100% tariff on Chinese imports to the U.S. Meanwhile, major port fees on each other's maritime shipping vessels took effect on Wednesday, transport firms being hit with an additional charge of up to $3 million per cargo load, depending on the weight. Analysts believe that Washington and Beijing may be stacking up bargaining chips ahead of a planned meeting between Trump and his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping in South Korea later this month. On Wednesday, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has warned that the rare earth restrictions could push the world economy to decouple from China's. Bessent, though, offering a carrot as well as the stick. He floated the possibility of a tariff truce if those export curbs are reversed. Here's Bessent.
I believe China is open to discussion, and I am optimistic that this can be de-escalated. Ultimately, we are confident in the strong relationship between President Trump and President Xi. We've had substantial communication with the Chinese over the past few days, and we believe that there will be more forthcoming this week.
And how are the markets reacting to these developments?
Well, crude oil prices jumped about 1% on the heels of that announcement from Trump that India would stop buying Russian oil. They have settled a bit, still up around 0.75% for Brent crude, around 0.8% for WTI. A mixed picture on Asian stock indexes, meanwhile, as investors try to game out what might result from that upcoming meeting between Trump and Xi. The Kospi in Seoul, though, gaining around 2.5% to hit a record high after Bessent told reporters that a U.S.-South Korea trade deal is just getting the finishing touches now. Here in Europe, major indexes opening fairly flat. Shares in Swiss food giant Nestle, though, jumping some 6% after new CEO Philippe Navratil announced a cost-cutting plan that will see 16,000 jobs cut worldwide over the next 2 years.
And finally, from you, Brian, Argentina's business community may have welcomed President Javier Milei's free market agenda, but the manufacturing sector is suffering some unexpected consequences.
So Milei's harsh austerity program has had some successes in dramatically slowing the country's runaway inflation. It's given it its first budget surplus in 14 years. His deregulation measures, though, have opened the door for cheap imports that are quickly driving Argentine factories out of business. Meanwhile, a sell-off in the peso has pushed the Trump administration to step in with two $20 billion bailouts, but only if the party of the far-right libertarian Milei succeeds in upcoming legislative elections. Eliza Herbert takes a closer look.
For 8 decades, this family-owned business manufactured thermoses in Argentina. Today, only one of 4 assembly lines still operates, and the manager says he has had to lay off 100 workers.
Unfortunately, when these things happen, it's very painful for us. Very painful because we lose long-standing, highly valuable employees who cost the company a lot of money to train.
His story is one plaguing many Argentinians. The cost to produce locally has become more expensive than international imports since Javier Milei introduced sweeping tariff cuts and loosened import restrictions. The right-wing president took power on a promise to take a chainsaw to government spending and subsidies. And on paper, it's seen some success. The nation's long-battered economy has recorded its first fiscal surplus in 14 years, and inflation has fallen from triple digits to roughly 36%. But the economy is still struggling and spending has slowed. In August, domestic industrial production fell 4.4% year on year, and unemployment spiked in local manufacturing. Among the victims, these workers who were laid off from their ceramics factory.
The company has gradually declined. It has been buying less raw materials. As we weren't selling much, we were producing less.
A financial bailout could be coming Argentina's way in the form of two multi-billion-dollar deals agreed to by Donald Trump earlier this week. However, the US president has said he will not be generous if his right-wing ally fails to win the upcoming legislative elections.
And that's it for business, Karis.
All right, Brian, thank you very much for that update.